Welcome to the Deep Dive. You share the sources, the articles, the reviews, the fan theories, and we distill the essential knowledge you need to be perfectly informed. Today, we are wading into a really chaotic and, I have to say, beloved corner of the literary world. We're tackling a phenomenon that just split its entire readership right down the middle.
That phenomenon is Brimstone. It's the second book in Callie Hart's Fane and Alchemy romantasy series.
Right, the sequel to the huge bestseller Quicksilver.
Exactly, a #1 New York Times bestseller. And this book, Brimstone, was met with, well, both overwhelming devotion for its characters and, on the other hand, some really intense structural criticism of its plot.
All 672 pages of it.
All 672 pages.
So our mission today is really to unpack that tension. Why did a book that was so, technically scrutinized become this immediate bestseller? And for its fandom, it was almost a religious experience.
Was.
We're diving into what readers loved, and specifically one very dramatic Fae warrior, and exactly why critics called the plot, of all things, gatekept.
Right. And to set the scene, we are firmly in the enemies to lovers romantasy genre. Our main couple is the alchemist Saeris Fane and the Fae warrior Kingfisher. It was released on November 18th, 2025, and the anticipation was just staggering.
And the author, Callie Hart, she's a British expat, right? Known for dark romance before this.
That's her. She mastered that dark academia and romance space and then just jumped into this high-stakes world of fae and magic.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the sheer volume of excitement. I mean, this wasn't just another book release. The sources we have show the fandom treated this like a national holiday.
It was seismic. Absolutely. We're talking about fans, ditching all their plans.
Taking personal days off.
Taking personal days. Yeah, and social media was just flooded. There's this one quote that captures it perfectly. Someone wrote, "It is Christmas, New Year's, and our birthdays put together."
Wow.
That's an incredible level of hype, even for a huge sequel.
Well, and that devotion, it has a history, doesn't it? I mean, Quicksilver was a self-published success story first.
It was back in June 2024.
Right.
Then it just took off, got picked up by Forever for a traditional deal. Then a deluxe edition came out last summer.
So that whole trajectory, that just raises the stakes for Brimstone so much higher.
Immensely. When you have that kind of momentum, the pressure to deliver a perfect sequel is just, it's huge.
So where does the story actually pick up?
Okay, so Saeris Fane has just been crowned Queen of the Blood Court, but she immediately faces this just impossible choice. She has to get back to her homeland, Zilverin.
But there's a catch.
A huge catch.
Yeah.
Here's the classic setup separation as a plot device.
Right.
The sources all point to this major complication. Saeris is stronger now, but she's also paradoxically fatally weak to travel.
How does that work?
The book says she was born under blazing suns and will surely die if she travels through the Quicksilver.
So she's trapped.
She's trapped. And that physical constraint creates the engine for, the whole first half of the book.
Kingfisher has to go without her.
He has to go back to Zilverin, Silver City, in her place. And he's not alone. He's paired with the smuggler, Carrion Swift.
Okay, that feels like a big structural gamble.
Yes.
You've got this epic couple that everyone loves, and the first thing you do in the sequel is split them up.
It is a gamble.
And based on a brand new, kind of sudden medical condition. Do the sources say if that's explained well? It feels like a question readers would have read away.
It definitely raised some eyebrows, but the overarching threat, this darkness falls across Evalia, it's so massive that readers mostly went along with it.
For the sake of the tension.
Exactly. And, that separation is what led directly to the intense character work, which is really why so many people loved the book.
The narrative uses a dual point of view, which I imagine is pretty crucial here.
Oh, absolutely. We get deep inside Saeris' head as she's sort of rising to this role as queen.
So we see her grow.
Mentally, emotionally, and as they say, rune-wise, she's forced to learn how to lead, how to delegate. One fan, quote, summed her up perfectly as fierce, clever, and unapologetically bold.
So she's holding down the political force.
While your mate is gone, yeah.
Okay, let's get to it. The character who carries this entire phenomenon. Kingfisher. The Shadow Daddy.
The Shadow Daddy. He is that total alpha presence, known for his filthy mouth. But his devotion to Saeris is just... It's described as feral.
Feral, but tender.
Possessive, but so tender. And that's where you see the emotional commitment that fans are just starving for.
That kind of transcends the plot itself.
It does. I mean, listen to this quote from him. "I would sacrifice the sun from the fucking sky and surrender the stars too if I could. But those things aren't mine to give. All I have is my life.
Whoa.
It isn't much, but I'd spend it and consider the price small if it meant keeping you safe.
Okay, sacrifice the son. That's intense. Is that just dramatic, possessive language, or does the book balance it out? Because that level of hyperbole could get, exhausting over almost 700 pages.
It could, but it works because the devotion is the point. That's the emotional payoff. That's why readers are willing to forgive the book's other issues. They are there for that feeling.
And speaking of payoff, the big one, his identity, the mask finally comes off.
It does. Kingfisher's real name is revealed to be Kaidan Greystar Finvara.
Pidan. And that name alone, the sources say, launched 1,000 fan theories.
Oh, instantly. Though it's interesting, some readers found it hard to adjust. They felt Saeris just switched to calling him Kaidan immediately, which felt a little bit unbelievable to them.
I could see that. Which leads us, of course, directly to the spice factor.
Of course. Brimstone is rated a 4 out of 5, so it's much more explicit than Quicksilver. It moves firmly into that scorching hot territory.
And the scenes are a big part of the book, right?
A major feature, yeah. Weighted more towards the middle and end, reinforcing that bond between Saeris and Kaidan.
But hang on, we have to talk about the real MVP of Brimstone.
Oh, yes.
The side character everyone fell in love with. Carrion Swift, the smuggler.
Carrion's popularity is just undeniable. Fans are literally demanding a spin-off book for him.
He brings the humor.
Crucial comic relief, that necessary banter. He and Kaidan have this reluctant buddy cop energy, constantly getting on each other's nerves.
And even the critics who didn't like the book.
Even they gave Carrion credit. They called him the MVP of what some of them called a mess of a book.
So we have this intense emotional core. Devotion, high spice, and a hilarious sidekick.
Mm-hmm.
But that very intensity, that focus on the emotional bond, that's what leads us right into the biggest criticisms.
That's right. That laser focus on the fated mate dynamic led to a huge stylistic issue. Repetition.
The phrase, my mate.
My mate, one reviewer actually counted it.
180 times.
In one book. 180 times. That stops being a term of endearment and just becomes a distraction.
It really does. And other terms, too, like solar plexus, it just pulls you out of the story.
It feels like something an editor should have caught. Especially in a sequel this big, it just highlights that need for tighter control to prune those, favorite but overused phrases.
Which brings us to the divided reception. This book is such a fascinating case study. You've got 5-star masterpiece reviews right next to 2-star critiques, calling it a disjointed train wreck.
The negative points really boil down to 3 main structural problems. First, the pacing and the length.
672 pages.
And critics said it felt overly complicated and overly long. That huge sections felt like filler dressed up as plot.
You read all that way and feel like the story only moved forward in the last 100 pages.
Exactly, a classic pacing issue.
And second, this idea of the plot gatekeeping. This is such an interesting point about how a story is built. What did readers mean by that?
They felt the book was actively and, frustratingly withholding crucial information.
How so?
Well, the sources pointed out all these moments where a character would say something like, I understand the big secret now.
But they don't tell the reader what it is.
They don't, or this is what we must do, but I can't tell you why yet. It just kept happening. One reviewer said doing that more than twice feels less like a mystery and more like the book is gatekeeping its own plot.
So the problem isn't the lore itself. It's that the reader isn't allowed to participate in figuring it out.
You're locked out of the conversation.
And the third major issue goes back to the separated couple.
It does. Outside of the spicy scenes, critics felt they lacked real emotional communication.
The mind link.
They relied on a mind link to insert intimacy when they were apart, and critics just slammed that as lazy writing. A shortcut to avoid writing complex dialogue.
That leads to a bigger critique, doesn't it? About the editing process itself.
Yes. The sources we looked at mentioned continuity errors, timeline issues, just clear writing mistakes.
And the flaws were big enough that they actually sparked rumors.
They did. Rumors, which were mentioned in the source material, that the book might have been partially written by AI.
Which, whether it's true or not, says a lot.
It speaks volumes about the perceived quality. Readers shouldn't be wondering if a sequel to a bestseller was rushed to that degree.
And looking at the lore, there were specific plot points that were flagged as confusing or just undercooked.
Definitely. Like, Saeris suddenly gets new magic, this explosive energy and a healing ability that just seems to come out of nowhere.
No framework for it.
No. And we still don't have answers on big world-building questions. Why does the Quicksilver talk? Where did it come from?
And then there are the spicy time tattoos.
Yeah, the spicy time tattoos that just kind of materialize with no real explanation or lore behind them.
And here's one that really annoyed fans. Kingfisher's problem with the Quicksilver from Book 1
Resolved entirely off-page.
by a side character.
Yep, a huge disappointment for fans who expected Saeris to be the one to fix his core conflict.
So with all these complex parts, preparation is key.
It is. We really have to recommend that if you're going to read Brimstone, you must read the Quicksilver bonus scenes first, the ones from Kingfisher's POV.
They're essential.
Absolutely critical context,
Oh.
especially about his godsword, Nimrel, and what happened at the Ajin Gate. Without that, a lot of the sequel just won't click into place.
Okay, before we get to the huge finale, let's quickly reassure the animal lovers out there. What happens to Onyx the Fox and Archer the Fire Sprite?
It's a rough ride for them. It was a really heartbreaking moment when Onyx dies trying to save Saeris and Kaidan.
But he doesn't stay dead.
He doesn't. Saeris uses all her rune magic to resurrect him. She almost dies doing it, but they both survive.
And Archer.
Archer also nearly dies in an attack, but he's saved by his Fire Sprite community. So no permanent animal tragedies. You can breathe easy.
Okay, good. Now, let's get to where it gets really interesting. The climax, the big reveal about Kaidan. What's the theory?
The ending is just shocking. It suggests Kaidan is way more than just a Fey warrior. He's possibly a half-god, a demigod.
Wow.
And fan speculation is just running wild. The leading theory is that his father is Styx, the god of shadows and the king of dragons.
So that completely changes his importance in the world. He's not just one half of a couple anymore.
He becomes a major player in the entire mythology of Euvalia.
It's an explosive way to end, but we can't wrap up without mentioning the trigger warnings.
Yeah.
This is dark romantasy.
It is, and it's intense. We're talking explicit sexual content, violence, war, blood drinking, a suicide attempt, torture, genocide, and animal death.
It's a heavy list. And after all that chaos, all 52 chapters.
It ends on what fans are calling a criminal cliffhanger. Everyone is just desperate for Book 3, which is anticipated for November 2026.
So what does this all mean for you, the reader? I think Brimstone is this perfect example of a book that was, technically flawed, structurally a bit of a mess, but it was so intensely loved for its character chemistry.
It really was.
That deep emotional connection that readers felt, Kaidan's devotion, Carrion Swift's humor, it just completely trumped the need for a perfectly plotted story.
And this highlights a huge trend in romantasy right now. The audience often prioritizes that immediate, consuming, emotional payoff over narrative perfection.
The obsession with the characters drives everything.
Everything. The passion around Saeris and Kaidan's fated mates done right is what fuels this massive success, even when the plot mechanics are, a little disjointed.
So here's our final thought for you. Given that huge list of trigger warnings, the 672 pages of filler and repetition, and all the plot complexities we talked about, the gatekeeping, the pacing, why do some readers willingly dive into these long, chaotic, emotionally extreme series?
It's a great question.
What does that tell us about the current appetite for these high-stakes, all-consuming fictional worlds that demand so much of our time and our emotional energy? Something for you to chew on until Kaidan Greystar Finvara returns in Book 3.
We've given you the roadmap to the critical debate, the character obsession, and the deep lore of Brimstone. Now you're well informed.
Until next time, keep digging into those pages.